Grace and peace, grace and peace. Thank you guys again for tuning in to another episode of You're Doing It Wrong. My name is Brandon. Last month had the honor and the privilege of recording an episode with Paula and Trinetta on motherhood. I thought they did a phenomenal job. Again, when I go into these episodes, I don't know what to expect. I want to have just real and authentic conversations, and they definitely brought that. We talked about identity and just the double standards when it comes to mothers and fathers. We talked about infertility, and we talked about abortion. So I thought it was a great episode of me branding this podcast as one that is willing to have those conversations, and not only just have those conversations, but acknowledging where I've been wrong, and not in acknowledging certain things, and just us as a collective of Christians and those who share the same worldview have just gotten it wrong, especially when it comes to the topic of abortion. Grace is rarely, leading in that conversation, and much grace is needed when we're having such a difficult topic on such things as abortion. But this month, I am once again joined by just some wonderful, talented ladies. I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I didn't have support, and I can honestly say that they have just shown so much love and support to me, and I just wanted just to reciprocate that, and not only just reciprocate it, but they are talented as well, and this is a topic that is very, very dear to me. Some of you know that I'm a biblical studies major, got my bachelor's in biblical studies, got a master's, working towards another master, and hopefully get a doctorate. And it sounds like a mouthful. It sounds like a whole bunch, but I have no clue what I'm going to do. I don't want to be a pastor. I do like to teach, but as I've been in seminary, I realized that teaching in a seminary is cool, but I want to be able to communicate to people in my cultural context, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So I don't mind teaching, but I want to do other things as well, such as podcasting, such as writing. I don't mind preaching and speaking, but I don't know how that looks. I don't know what that is. And as I grow and I mature, I realize that I can't do it all by myself, that I need help, and I need support. And that's why I'm so grateful for these women that I have here with me, just going through that journey, just the struggles, just the uncertainty, not knowing what's gonna happen, and just being able just to have a platform just to discuss and talk about that and just be real, because like I said, I honestly don't know what in the world I'm doing. But I'm just grateful for them. And like I said, the topic of conversation is creating content. And I hate using words like that because it's such a millennial term and it's so abstract, especially when I talk to my parents about it. They look at me like I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, how much money you making? And it's like, exactly. I don't know. So hopefully this is, just the beginnings of creating a platform, creating content, and just putting myself out there, because normally I just would rather be behind the camera and not in front of it. And that's one of the things that God has just been pressing on me, that no, this is where I've called you to have you, and just being willing to be uncomfortable. I think for a long time, comfort has been an idolatry. I've idolized it. Mm-hmm. And God is saying, no, we're not doing that. So I'm grateful for the help and the support that I get. But I've got Tam and Bonita with me. I guess I should have said that. How are you guys doing this morning? Number one, thank you for giving up your Saturday to being here. But how are you guys doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Like I said, you guys have always been just a constant support. And when I reached out to you guys, I was throwing out the idea of talking about business and branding, and just still trying to brainstorm of which direction that we should go. And I think just creating content is probably the better, because now we can talk about these other ideas that come along with branding and business. And even though I was making the joke earlier about just trying to brand this podcast, it's one that's willing to have those deep conversations that usually get ignored, and do it from a perspective that acknowledging, being aware of where I've dropped the ball, and then us as Christians have dropped the ball. But this idea of branding, I really don't like it, because it's almost like, you're selling yourself. It's like when you go into an interview, it's like you've got to put your best face forward and everything. And it's kind of the idea with branding. And not to say that that's a bad thing. It's just, I've just never been much of a salesperson. I don't think I'm good at it. And I think there's two sides to branding. There's a tangible side where you can see something physical, and then there's an intangible side where it's like, who are you? What do you represent? And I was saying earlier that a good example of this is the NFL. Recently, we just heard, Jay-Z is partnering with the NFL, and people are so up in arms where, if I'm going to be honest, I love the product of the NFL. I love watching it on Sundays, but I understand that there's so many people who are not with the intangible side of the NFL because they don't seem to care about the players' concerns. Most people believe Colin Kaepernick is still, being blackballed. So it's like, how can I support, this business that is doing these things, even though it's $1 billion business, but the intangible branding, it doesn't look good, especially when you compare it to the NBA, where it seems more player oriented and things like that. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about you guys, not necessarily the content that you were creating, which is great, but who you were as people. And so I wanted to start from there. So I wanted to ask the question, who are you? What do you value? And how is that shown in the content that you create? And I'll start with you, Tam.
Okay, well, I am a wife of 9 years.
Congrats.
Yeah, so shout out to my husband, Pat. And so, yeah, wife. By day, I am a human resources specialist. I work for a medical practice. I've been there for 9 years as well, going on 10. And I'm also a sister, a daughter, a friend. And I am also a content creator, I guess you could say. I have a blog. It's coming up on a year in September. This is Tam is the name of my website. This is tam.com. And then my blog is called Tam Speaks. So I've been blogging for about a year. And I'm also, I love to sing. So I'm on our praise and worship team at our church. And I feel like I'm forgetting. Oh, I'm a photographer. Yes. Gosh, I forget about that piece. Yes, I do photography. I've been doing photography since 2011. So that's been a little while now. Did I forget anything else?
So a lot of the things that you named were things that you do. How would you describe you just as a person, your just personality, your character traits, and then how you display that?
Okay.
Well, that was fine. You could go take it any way you want. Any way you want to go with it.
Okay. So who am I as a, who am I
as a person? But that's fine because we are identified by what we do.
Yeah.
But who is Tam as the person?
Right. Okay. Tam as a person, I am a introvert by heart. So that means I love people. However, I need my space at the same time. So I'm an introvert by heart, and I love God. He has truly saved my life. I really have a testimony when it comes to that. So I am a believer. I'm so thankful for Jesus. And I don't start, Bonita. I saw that on head. And yeah, so I don't know. Outside of that, I feel like I am I'm really starting to walk into my gift of encouragement. So I feel like I'm an encourager by heart, if that's even a word. So I like to just be there for people. So I think that falls a lot into my personality as well. But it kind of contradicts the whole introvert side, but I'm working on that too. So yeah, does that answer that question?
It does. Do you think the blog helps with that, where you can kind of be private but still, communicate with? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah, but then it gets difficult because people will come up to me, like they'll see me in person and be like, "Oh my God, I loved your blog," and I'm like, "Okay, what do I say to that? How do I react to that?" You know what I mean? Yeah. So then I kind of have to engage more about it and maybe go in a little bit more depth, or if they just have a question or something like that. But I think it's all a part of my growth process right now, which I've been in a season for about 1.5 years. Of just growth as a person, as me, and just really finding who I am. And I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But just being married to the person I'm married to. I've been such a support for him, which I love. But now I just feel like I'm in a time of figuring out what place I hold in this world.
So one of the things that just knowing you, and like I said, for those who don't know, when we first moved here, Tam and her husband, they were our community group leaders. So we have a special relationship with the mixes, just how they've embraced us moving down, because it's a big move and you just like uncertain of so many things, but they've embraced us. But just knowing you and just being able to view from afar, I've always had this sense of boldness and confidence that I've seen. And it's funny that you make that face about me. But it's like, no, because even at church, leading worship, just so confident, just being, I don't know, you've always just seemed so bold and confident. And I think your reaction is kind of shown in your writing, you know, where you're just able to be vulnerable. And that's something that, and clearly, I guess when you don't know people, you're not going to let them that much in. But just the person that I saw as Tam, just so bold, so strong, so confident, just the writing was just so vulnerable. And I just connected with that because it just shows you just the full range of a human being. That even though I can, not to say that it was, you know, an act, but it's like, hey, there's times where, and I guess that's the point, you're not relying on your own strength. Right. You know, you understand that your strength comes from something else. But that's just something that, as an observer of you, I sense just that boldness and that confidence from you. But in reading your writing, just seeing, you know, how vulnerable it is just to be so open and honest in your writing. So that's something that I've noticed in your writing and truly appreciated.
Well, I think that just goes to show like how our perception of ourselves is so can be so skewed and so different than other people's perceptions of us. Because that was my perception of Tam too when I first met her, and likewise she and Pat were my community group leaders, and they were just always very welcoming, very like, what do you need? We got you. And you get that smile. And you see Tam every Sunday up leading worship, and as a person who leads worship with her, sometimes I'm looking at her like, how does she do that? You know, and and it's crazy, like just the feeling that you have that maybe doesn't reflect the same, you know, perception that we have.
Y'all talking about confidence and being bold. Child,
but I think just that the fact that you are scared and then you can still go out there and do it, the fact that you don't want to be vulnerable and you can still write to it, that really just kind of show, you know, highlights what we're saying even more. So I definitely agree 100%.
I appreciate y'all saying that. Ooh.
Yeah, and it's like we've all had our times up on the stage, and like I said, I can honestly say I know the feeling of just being like terrified, standing in front of all the people. But it's just like it's definitely a peace that surpasses you know, all absolutely. That you have to, like, you know, truly rely that this is in my weakness, God's grace is shown. Yes. And so you clearly see that. But what about you, Bonita? Who are you? What do you value? And how is that shown in the content that you create?
I am a believer, first and foremost. I am a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a bestie to a bunch of people. But, you know, I think that's really where all my value is in my relationships. You know, I love the people that are in my life because they love me so good. And that's I understand that that's not necessarily common in a lot of people's lives. So I'm very, very grateful for that. I am a natural extrovert. But the older I get, I appreciate my alone time. The older I get, the more I appreciate being by myself. I think that a lot of people kind of misinterpret my extroversion though, like, or extrovertedness. What is it? Y'all know what I'm saying. Because I think, especially to introverts, like being an extrovert means you like to be the center of attention, you like the camera on you all the time, and like I'm actually the exact opposite, which again goes in contradiction to like what I do with like branding myself on social media. But the honest reality is, if I didn't have my brand, if I wasn't working towards what I believe God has called me to do, I probably wouldn't have a social media page. So I am like, I love being with people. I love to talk. I love to laugh. I love to joke. I think I'm silly.
That wasn't shady. I promise. It wasn't.
She got that in real slick. but yeah, I think I'm silly. But I think that, there's still this part of me as I continue to, get older and get more confident in who I am and like what I want, what God's called me to do, that I have to have my quiet time to really reflect on what and hear what God's saying, not what everybody else is saying. I guess what I do, by day, I am an operations manager at a bank. By every other hour, I am a content creator. I am a blogger. I have apparel. I'm starting coaching, life coaching. And I am I'm figuring it out every single day, like a work in progress. Yeah. So.
And being very modest that you're actually wearing your apparel.
Yeah.
Which you can plug.
Well, this is about branding.
And also a book too. Again, modest.
Oh, author.
Author. As well. And it's kind of the same deal with you, just from the outside perspective, just not knowing all the things that you've gone through, and to be so personal in the book in the content that you create, because not only have you written one book, you've also written a children's book as well. And I haven't can you speak about that, how that whole came together?
Yeah, so actually what's funny is I've never actually wanted to write like an adult book. So I know that was God all day, saying that, this is information that I need you to put out. This is content I need you to put out. But I always wanted to do like a children's animated series. I did not know what I wanted to write about until one day there's a little girl that was in our life, and she was talking to my mom, and she asked my mom for a Bible. Yeah. And my mom was like, well, of course I'll get you a Bible. Where'd that come from? 'Cause she was like 5. And she said that my dad, who she called Papa D, he would read her Bible stories when he took her to school. And it was just so sweet to me how excited she was about the Bible and, knowing about God. And then I thought to myself, like, what about all the kids that don't have like a Papa D to tell them about God? So then I knew that I wanted my content to be, Christian based. I wanted it to be something that, for little Black and brown children to be able to see themselves in Christian literature. So the first book is called Do You Know Who God Is? And it's really about this little girl talking to her grandfather, asking him, Grandpa, who's God? And he's telling her who God is, in a way that I think that children can, digest. But that's going to be a part of a larger series, which is called The Divine Adventures. Okay. So, yeah.
And so just going based off that, it seems like, at least from those two things that you've written, it's kind of based off just your own personal experiences. And so you go from writing it, and I just love the range, going from writing a children's book to a memoir, it's just like a big gap. So talk to me about just that whole process of writing that, because again, you don't spare any details. You tell it, and I love how you even open up your book and it's like, don't be judgy, because it's like, hey, I make some mistakes in this book and you're going to probably scream at me and like, yo, what are you doing? And just that vulnerability and the transparency, like, hey, I know this picture that we have of what a Christian looks like and all the things we not supposed to do and are supposed to do, is like, just throw them all out the window, right. Because this is my life and this is my journey and this is where God has brought me, and I've learned so much through it. And so I guess just speak to just being so willing to be open about all those things and just the process of writing, because I've also written myself, and I understand the difficulty of writing a book, but my book isn't nearly as personal as yours, because it's like I'm just putting this out into the world. So right. Talk to me about that.
So the book is really a byproduct of my blog. So my blog, sheisbonita.com, is really me talking through some situations in my life where, one, when I was 22, I was in a car accident with my boyfriend, and he passed away in the car accident. And like me dealing with that, or rather me not dealing with that. And then I got into a relationship that was really toxic for me, and just like the ups and downs in that relationship. And I did the blog because when I was in the relationship with the guy, I painted such a beautiful picture of his and my relationship. Mm-hmm. Like online, you would have thought we were the best couple. We were like Barack and Michelle, couldn't nothing bring us down. And the whole time I was putting on, because the whole time I was not happy. That's not the life that I was living. So, you know, once I got done with that, and when I called off the wedding, because we ended up getting engaged, when I called off the wedding, I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, people are going to be asking me about my wedding. They're going to want to know when, you know, what's the date. Right. They've been so invested in this relationship that I created for them. Yeah. Right. And so it's like, well, Lord, how do I keep moving on? And I was talking to my friends one day, and they were like, well, Bonita, you should write it out. Because I've always been a writer, even since I was a kid. And I was like, I don't know about, you know, putting my business out there like that for people to like look at me and judge me and stuff like that. And it just kept really, you know, I just kept hearing that, just write it out. And so I did, and I made it a Facebook post one day, and the response was like overwhelming. And I was like, okay, God, if this is what you want me to do, I'm gonna do it. And I knew that it would not be what he was calling me to have it be if I wasn't completely open, if I wasn't completely honest, because I couldn't tell the story and still look good in it, because nobody gets anything out of that. Right. So I couldn't paint myself as a victim. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't make the dirty parts look cleaner than they were, because God can't move through that, or he won't move through that. So I knew that if I was going to commit to do this, that I had to be all in, and I had to give it straight. And that was very difficult. And I prayed before every single post went out, and I wrestled with God. I was like, this one, you want like this information out? Because I could talk about some other stuff. Yeah. And, you know, and of course, every single time I put it out, it will blow my mind, because I just knew that people were going to be like, girl, you stupid. Like, how'd you deal with that? And we thought you was smarter than this. Like, and then, you know, I just get women that are just like, oh my God, you know, I thought I was dealing with this by myself. I get men who are like, you know, reading that helped me realize that I haven't been the person that I need to be to the girl that I'm with. And just like, then I'm like, that's confirmation, that's God. And then people started saying, yeah, we need a book. And I was like, y'all don't. Y'all got these blog entries, and that's quite enough. And again, that's how that came to be.
And that's the thing that I really love about the book.
Yo, my world don't stop when the beats commence. Said I'm climbing up this ladder just to get over this fence and run far, far away from the games people play. In this melancholy modern day music, Malay, touche. Pussycats with lives to spare that kick, you know, in your heart, nice as hell. Yeah, be aware, beware. I hate to see you less deliver or worse. Polar bear, winter time, catch the river. Now that's cold, and like that, now that's old. Didn't buy the last copy of this, now that's old. It's the pepper on your salt, my